But that's not what this video is about. At least, not really. Let me explain. Over the holiday break, I finally decided to watch The Wire because I always be talking to y'all about The Deuce. I'm going to evangelize that show forever. But I've always heard about The Wire. People always say it's like one of the greatest shows ever written. It's so brilliant. And sometimes I'm like, okay, y'all hype up things too much. But since I love The Deuce so much, I thought, why not? Binged it twice. And I'm probably going to watch it a third time. I loved it. Even the last season that I didn't love so much, I still loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the simplicity of the show, how it seems like the show is just always on a slow boil. And then by the end of the season, you're like, oh no, they killed so many people. Characters die not because it's going to shock people, but because it makes sense in the plot. Everything feels so authentic. I know that word, but everything does in that show. Mainly because the creator, David Simon, used to work for the Baltimore Sun, and The Wire takes place in Baltimore. And The Wire takes place in Baltimore. The Wire takes place in Baltimore. And his main writer, Ed Burns, was also a homicide detective and worked in narcotics, and then later worked in the Baltimore school system. Season 4 takes place not just around that, but mainly around that. I love the show so much because there are never any simple answers. And typically when you get to the end of a David Simon show, you're kind of just like, so it's all broken, huh? With The Wire, it's the police system. It's the police, the politics, the school system, basically the entire city of Baltimore. In The Deuce, it's the world of sex and capitalism, the relationship between genders, the role of power and money. In We Own the City, it's back to the corruption of the police department of Baltimore. Yeah. Listen, they say write what you know, okay? But I found myself watching and rewatching that and wanting to rewatch The Deuce just because I wanted to live in their world again. Because for me, it's felt like for a little while, it's hard to find TV that brings back the complexity of a character without people freaking out. For an example, Pluribus. I've been watching Pluribus. It's kind of losing me just because I'm like, maybe I'm not patient enough for this show. But the main character is not very likable. Carol is so damn annoying. And like, I get it because I feel like I would also be this untrusting of a whole group of people. It's the weirdest kind of apocalyptic show you could imagine. I don't want to ruin too much, but everyone becomes a hive mind and they're all nice. And there are a few people that are immune and Carol is one of them. And she is an angry lesbian. Lots of people have called her a Karen or they're pissed. Other people come to her defense because they're like, what do you mean? This is something that I saw in Yellow Jackets as well when they decided to make Shauna do a full heel turn. Like she turned completely evil in this most recent season. People were defending her. Other people were like, this doesn't make sense. This is terrible. Why does she have to be evil? Blah, 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 blah. Part of that comes from, I think, and speculate, the idea that people don't necessarily want to engage in media that is going to challenge them or make them uncomfortable like we used to. Or like, not maybe we used to, maybe we were forced to. Now we have way more options and algorithms that give us what we want specifically. And if you don't want to see that shit, you don't have to see that shit. And I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice by not trying to see some of that shit, you know? So let's talk about it. The media we consume is about narratives. As much as we want to believe it's spontaneous and it's about narratives, creating stories because people understand stories. They can relate to stories and latch onto them. In a lot of stories, it is very easy to tell the story of good and evil and make it that simple. The greatest story ever told, religion. It's about good and evil. Instead of acknowledging that human beings are much more complex than that, stories allow us a space to go, yes, this person is good and I relate to them, so I must be good. This person is evil and I know people that are like them, so they are evil. Yeah, babes, it's not that simple. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but it's not. People are very complicated. And yes, fantasy shows are very easy to have the juxtaposition of good and evil against each other. So another example I want to use is heated rivalry between one of our main characters, Ilya Rozanov, and his brother, all the way back in Russia, harassing him for money any chance he gets so he can use it on drugs. He's yelling at him about not having enough. He just wants more and more and more. His brother has a family to take care of, but you're not doing that. Ilya is the one who's taking care of them. So we mainly get Ilya's perspective, right? This is not a David Simon show. I know that. But I'm saying if it was, and if more shows were kind of like that, Ilya's brother would be a shithead, annoying asshole still. But we would have more nuance to the character. We would know him better. We would know all the side characters better.
better. I know it is not about the side characters. It is about these two and the romance. But this is going to lead into my next thing of the main character syndrome of it all, because a lot of us get locked in these TV shows, and I know most of us know TV is not reality. We know it logically, but a lot of people still try to main characterize their lives. They still try to be the center of your own world. Whose world are you going to be the center of? All valid points, all fair. But you're watching TV shows where side characters are rarely, if ever, developed, rarely, if ever, fleshed out. Who are you going to relate to? The good person or the evil person? More of us are going to relate to the good person, and that flattens a lot of things.
And when I watch TV shows with characters that show me that complexity, like Ole's most recent video essay, There Are No Monsters, Only People, which I'm going to talk about kind of in here, but I also want to create a whole separate video about the system. Anyway, when I observe those things, they challenge me, they expand my mind, and they force me to reckon with the fact that the world is not so simple as this person good, this person bad, these traits good, these traits bad. And when you look at characters in TV shows that start to turn evil or look like the anti-hero and stuff, in a way it's kind of fun that people are defending those characters or going against them, because this is kind of the point. We do like to have a little discourse and talk about our values and morals and how characters reflect those back to us. But I think sometimes it comes across as people taking it so personally. People will stop watching a show if a character goes away that they don't like. They will stop engaging with certain media or certain people if they do a video with a take that they didn't like. If they have one post that they thought, oh, I don't agree with this and I don't have to see this, so I'm not going to engage in it. You can do whatever the fuck you want, because I care a lot about autonomy over everything. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And I would lightly encourage you to consider the importance of being challenged, of being uncomfortable, and the necessity of that to help you grow if that is a goal of yours. And when we're watching TV shows or observing the media and seeing people painted in these narratives as good or evil, that is not expanding your viewpoint. That is you listening to a narrative and immediately believing it. Instead of going, okay, this is one side of a story. What if I observe the other side? Even if I don't agree with it or like it, and I'm not just saying like black political left right side, I'm just saying in general, it is important to be aware of when you're being told stories so that you can appreciate them for what they are and then do your own thing and learn more. And when I say stories, I'm talking about, or narratives, I guess I should say, I'm talking about in the media, in the public. These are stories that people paint. As an example, and this is something that Ole was talking about in her video that I really liked. She's talking about Jeffrey Dahmer and how it is very easy for people to just say that if you're a serial killer, you were born evil, you were born a monster. Nobody is ever made into that. That's just how they were born. If you're somebody that just believes in good and evil, it is easy to fall down that path of just assuming any bad criminal whatever person is just an evil person. That's all you've seen of them, that's all you know of them, that's all you have to know. If you're somebody that knows that there's more nuance than just good and evil in every single one of us, even a serial killer, yeah, I know, sucks, right? You thought you were open-minded, but you can't hear this. Even a serial killer. If you can't recognize the complexity in someone as evil as that, let's say evil, quote, then you are more likely to be susceptible to other narratives that would be told to you. Getting even further into this Dahmer example, Ole is using this video to talk further about the criminal justice system and the incompetence and just the rickety ass justice system that's out there. It's rickety. And in The Wire, they show this so well. The incompetence, the corruption, all of it. It's astounding. But she's using it to explain that. And so she talks about how the media was covering Dahmer. Instead of talking about the fact that he was not very remarkable, was just a simple lonely white boy who was closeted and his parents got divorced and he was neglected. It wasn't as crazy as he was physically abused all the time and this, that, and the third. It was as simple as that. He was an alcoholic. He wasn't really that remarkable. He got kicked out of the army. He didn't really do shit. He was just like mediocre white kid, right? The media decided to cover him like this smart, conniving, so genius that he was able to evade the police because that helps the police cover up their general incompetence. There's a scene in The Wire in season 2. 2 police officers are on a stakeout. They are eating their food, watching out for this dude, and they're supposed to follow him. Right? These two get into an argument about French fries. And this man walks out, drives in his car, and leaves, and neither one of them notices.
Go ahead. Eat the fries, you fat fuck. See if I fucking care.
And it's such a small scene. It's so insignificant, but it is so important when you actually sit and think about it. It's an example of police incompetence. The Wire's a TV show, but the real life example of the Dahmer, he was so smart, he was able to manipulate the police into bringing a boy back that he was abusing, and the police didn't think that maybe that boy was in danger because he was so charismatic and manipulative. And it's like, no, the police were incompetent and they didn't care about black people, poor people, Asian people, gay people, especially at that time. And those were Jeffrey's victims. Poor black and Asian men, mostly. This is what I mean of like, the narrative is that story that the media will tell you about Jeffrey's competence and his skill and his genius and whatever, to get you to not look at what's actually behind the curtain, which is the corruption of the criminal justice system. And for me, watching a show like The Wire makes me want to learn more and go back into, even that's why I ended up watching Ole's video, because I was just like, oh, okay, this is kind of in the world of criminal justice. Let's keep learning. Let's keep expanding. And listen, The Wire's not always comfortable to watch, okay?
Suck my dick, dyke cunt.
Well, do you feel that, Mikey? Do you feel it? Because I swear to God, that is my fucking dick in your ear.
People say so many racial slurs.
Fucking niggers got me.
Homophobic shit.
Your homophobia is so visceral.
I ain't even stepped inside the joint yet, and you calling me a cocksucker already.
They drink and drive. The characters are so fucking terrible, but they also do good police work. And it's propaganda to an extent. It is to an extent, but I also think kind of not, because it really does, in my view, just kind of show, like, you don't leave it thinking, wow, the cops are so great. You really don't. You really don't. You leave it thinking the system is broken and this is bleak. And there are people still in it willing to fight, but girl, I don't know. That's how I leave the show. And I know that that's not something that people maybe want to feel leaving a TV show or movie. That's not something they really want to feel when they watch the news, because it implies that, like, okay, this shit really is broken. And that can feel helpless and like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? But even if the simplicity of a good evil narrative is safe and comfortable, it's not the truth. And the only way you can solve things, in my view, is by learning the truth. I always talk about taking really big philosophical ideas and being able to define them in your own terms. And one of those is truth. We can talk all day about what the truth is philosophically. What is the truth, right? For me, it's observing things from as many sides as possible to get as clear a picture as I can. When, again, I'm watching something like The Wire, I'm seeing so many different sides, from the drug dealer's perspectives, from the kingpins, from the little pawns on the street, from the corner boys, from the detectives, the sergeants, the mayor, the deputy commissioner. Like, you're seeing so many different perspectives and so many different viewpoints that are all weaving in together. And there's never a time where you're immediately like, this person is right and good and the other person is bad and wrong. You root for people that you probably wouldn't root for in real life. Like Omar Little is a character that people fucking love because Michael K. Williams did his big one with that one, okay? And he's so beautiful in it. There are so many shots of him in that show that I just have to pause because he looks so beautiful. But Michael K. Williams in The Wire plays sort of morally, he's kind of like a Robin Hood character. He robs drug dealers, right? That's the game. It's all in the game. He's not trying to hurt citizens. He's about robbing drug dealers, and if he gets robbed or whatever, it's all in the game. He's also a friend of Latifah, if you know what I'm saying, okay? He only dates light-skinned boys, though, Omar. But he is a homosexual, sawed-off, shotgun-carrying, robbing drug dealers, helping people in the neighborhood kind of guy. And because Michael K. Williams plays him so well, you root for him all the time. But Omar is not a good guy. Bunk, one of the detectives, points this out to him because they knew each other growing up. So they kind of go way back. But there's a shootout, some people die, and at the scene, Bunk is investigating this homicide, and there are little kids going, I get to play Omar, pretending to be the violence that they're witnessing. Bunk gets pissed, and he is ranting and raving to Omar because he's like, you say you have a code, you say this, that, and the third. When I was sitting there were kids saying, I want to be like Omar. And you see it for the rest of the season. In the episodes, it lingers in his brain, and he ends up helping Bunk find some gun that he she needed to find. It was a whole thing. Anyway, when I watch these shows and think of these characters and I'm rooting for them, but then I sit back and remember, and the show reminds me and puts it in my face. It's like, hey, you've been rooting for this guy all along, but did you ever consider that he also was part of the violence and destruction that people are witnessing, even if it's all in the game and he's only killing drug dealers? The game is ruining people's lives, like the system is ruining people's lives. Did you really sit and think about that? And it makes me go, oh, right. It could have been very easy to keep the character simple, to keep his plot simple. He's the Robin Hood, he's morally gray, but we love him because he knows who he is and he sticks to his guns, and a man gotta have a code. But David Simon doesn't do simple. And David Simon doesn't do safe. And that is why I appreciate his work. And I never would have gotten into it if I let myself remain offended by not just the language that they use in the show or the characters' behaviors or whatever, but just like the reality of how corrupt and disheartening it is to watch the criminal justice system play itself out, you know? So you're probably like, okay, so yeah, simple is too safe and I should challenge myself and this, that, and the third, but then like, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? What is that even gonna benefit if everything's gonna be the same? I'll try and explain. I don't know. We'll see. Oftentimes, when I have met y'all IRL or see comments from y'all, you always tell me about how I helped you open your mind or helped you realize you could change your mind or grow. So I'm just going to use myself as an example of how I think you can use media to challenge yourself, to allow nuance into your perspective and still remain true to your values and who you are. First off, you have to define your values. Like, what are they? What do you value in this world? What is something that like you think is important? A code of conduct that you think you should at least act by. You can't tell other people how they should act, but what you think they should act by. For me, autonomy is one of them. I don't believe that it's my right to try and tell someone what they can or can't do with their body. And then when I think about that though, because being curious is another one of mine, I follow that thought through of like, okay, well, if I think that way, do I think that way about a woman who's maybe super religious who wants to cover her whole body up, even if for me, I think that that's not my vibe? Yes, because that's her body, you know? So like you kind of discover your values as you name others, if that makes sense. And so yeah, like what are you naturally about? That takes observing yourself, honestly, as best you can. So for me, yeah, I really value autonomy. I really value curiosity. I really value truth and honesty. And again, I have to take these values, these lists of these grand things that I say I value, then I have to define them for myself. Not just a definition. I can look up the definition for sure, but not just the definition that I see or that the world tells me, but what is my personal definition in my code of conduct for my values, for each of these values. For me, curiosity, the definition is I come in with an open mind. That creates another value, open-mindedness. You see? Like little Russian dolls. But, Ilya, sorry, I'm sorry, girl. How dare y'all have me out here liking two men like this? What? Yes, my ex was a guy, but guys, please don't forget the program over here, okay? Don't forget, okay? Anyway, sorry, wait, where am I? I forgot everything. Value, being open-minded, yes. Curiosity for me, means being open-minded. And it means that I am going to approach things wanting to learn without judgment. That's where the open-mindedness as well comes in. Trying not to judge. It doesn't mean that I just do it. All these things that I'm listing is not stuff that I'm like, okay, well then I'm gonna just do it. It's practice. You can find little and big ways to try and practice it. Another value that I'm learning to appreciate is community. Because as much as I've talked about it, I'm a loner. Not like loner, but I spend a lot of time alone. And I don't like to ask for help because it's much easier to be by myself. And I can just do it myself and not be disappointed and not be vulnerable and let people see me in a vulnerable position. But if I say I value vulnerability, then I gotta be able to let myself get help, and community comes in with that. So I have in little ways been like, okay, well, let me break this down. If I want to allow people to help me and be there for me, what are ways that I can do that? And it requires me to focus. The other day, Chelsea came over, we were hanging out, I made a nice spread for us and all that stuff I was hosting. And then usually whenever I host and people are like, can I help? Can I clean? I say, no, get out of the kitchen, get out, whatever. This time I was like, Khadijah, you're working on letting yourself get help. So Chelsea offered to clean up everything. And I just said, thank you. I acknowledged that I was working on accepting help. And then I said, thank you. So anyway, that was a long 4 minutes about the values part, but that is one way I think you can start to be in the world and understand nuance and appreciate it and understand that people are much more complicated than we maybe are shown in general media, and also to allow yourself to consume things that are going to make you uncomfortable, because once you know what your values are, then you know, okay, people are doing things that maybe don't go with my values or what I appreciate or whatever. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not making any sense. I just be talking, and then I wake up and I'm like, what did I say? Another main way that I think you can challenge yourself beyond knowing what your values are, just knowing more about yourself to know what you are challenging and to help you grow and all that, is cognitive empathy. I know that that just sounds so simple, but people love to talk about how they're empaths and empathetic and emotional, whatever. Girl, how about you try putting yourself in somebody else's actual perspective and listening to them instead of immediately being like, no. Cognitive empathy is important. It is something that I work on all the time. And what I like to call it sometimes is just humoring me. Just humor somebody. What they're saying and doing, even if I don't agree or think it's nuts, let me just humor them for a second. Because that is a way that I have learned a lot. I have grown a lot and learned a lot about myself. It doesn't mean that I have taken on everything that somebody else has said that I try to empathize with and go, yeah, they're totally right. No, all of the stuff that I'm telling you is just the way that I see the world and what I think makes the world a better place. And that's being able to be around different opinions and viewpoints and ideas and still maintain who you are within them. If that makes sense. God, I really don't have a conclusion for this. I just really love media that challenges me, that allows me to see the world from a different perspective. And maybe it's not the perspective I love sometimes, because The Wire could be so bleak. These other shows can be so bleak. It's well, then what the fuck is the point of anything? But it's been nice to sit and ponder on it and consider, okay, well, if I'm sitting here watching this feeling hopeless, what is a way to feel hopeful? What are things that I could do as an individual as opposed to just leaving it at the system is broken and corrupt and it's too complicated? Everything is that. Everything is too complicated. So what am I going to do and how am I going to be in the midst of all this complexity? I fucking don't know, man. I hope that helped a little bit. This was not really a video essay. This is just kind of another commentary, contemplation on nuance, because I love to think about that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below, y'all. And I hope this made sense and registered. I don't know. Bye.